You care deeply. You give endlessly. You feel everything, sometimes before the other person even speaks. And somehow, despite all that love and sensitivity, you keep ending up in relationships where you're the one doing all the emotional labor, where you can't say no without guilt, where you disappear completely into someone else's world. Here's the uncomfortable truth. That's not empathy anymore. That's codependency. And the root cause? It lives somewhere you've probably never looked. Let's start here, because this is where most people get confused. Empathy is a gift, genuine, deep, soul-level sensitivity to other people's emotional worlds. Codependency is a wound, a psychological pattern where your sense of self becomes completely entangled with someone else's well-being. They feel identical from the inside. That's the problem. When you're a highly sensitive person, an empath, your nervous system is literally wired differently. Research from Dr. Elaine Aron, who coined the term highly sensitive person, shows that around 20% of the population processes sensory and emotional information more deeply than the norm. You're not imagining things, you really do feel more. But here's where it gets complicated. Carl Jung had this concept called the shadow, the unconscious part of your psyche that holds everything you were taught to suppress, deny, or be ashamed of. For empaths, the shadow often holds something surprising, your own needs. Think about that for a second. If you grew up in an environment where expressing your own needs felt unsafe, maybe a parent was emotionally unavailable, maybe love was conditional, maybe you learned early that being needed was the only way to feel secure, then your psyche did something very clever. It buried your needs deep in the shadow. And on the surface, it developed extraordinary sensitivity to everyone else's needs instead. This is why empath codependency is so sneaky. It doesn't look like neediness from the outside. It looks like generosity. It looks like love. It even feels like love from the inside. But Jung would say, anything that lives only in the unconscious will control you. And unacknowledged needs don't disappear. They drive behavior from the dark. You might be wondering, okay, but why do empaths specifically end up in codependent dynamics? Why not just healthy, reciprocal relationships? This is where Jungian psychology gives us something incredibly precise. Jung described a psychological mechanism called projection. When something lives in your shadow, something unacknowledged, something unintegrated, you don't see it in yourself. You see it in other people. For an empath with buried needs, the projection often works like this. You unconsciously seek out someone who expresses their needs loudly, urgently, even demandingly. Someone who takes up emotional space without apology, because that person is doing something you cannot do for yourself. Now, I'm not talking about conscious choice here. This is not your fault. This is your psyche running an ancient algorithm, trying to resolve an old wound through a new relationship. Jung called this dynamic the hook. The other person carries a quality that your shadow needs to integrate, and so you're magnetically drawn to them. This explains the notorious empath-narcissist dynamic. Not because empaths are weak, but because the narcissist's apparent self-sufficiency and emotional dominance hooks directly into the empath's unmet longing to have their own needs matter. At an unconscious level, the empath thinks, if I can make this person need me, if I can finally get this person to truly see me, I'll finally feel real. I'll finally feel enough. This is crucial. Codependency for empaths isn't about loving too much. It's about trying to reclaim something from the shadow through someone else. And that, by definition, will never work, because what lives in your shadow can only be integrated through inner work, not through another person. Jung was incredibly clear on this. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. For empaths in codependent patterns, That fate looks like the same relationship with different people over and over again. Let's go deeper, because there's a specific archetype at work in most empaths who develop codependency. Jung identified what he called the wounded healer, originally drawn from the myth of Chiron, the centaur in Greek mythology who could heal others but could not heal his own wound. This archetype is extraordinarily active in empaths. Here's how it shows up. You are drawn to people in pain. You have an almost instinctual ability to sense suffering and move toward it. You feel most purposeful, most yourself, when you are helping, holding, soothing, or saving. Sounds beautiful, and it is, until it isn't. The shadow side of the wounded healer is this: helping others becomes a way to avoid your own wound. When you're focused entirely on someone else's crisis, you don't have to feel your own grief, your own emptiness, your own unmet longing for someone to ask, "How are you? What do you need?" This is crazy. Research on caregiving and emotional labor actually shows that people who score high on empathetic concern, genuine sensitivity to others, also show higher rates of what psychologists call compulsive caregiving. Not because they're weak, because their nervous system has learned that caregiving is the safest emotional strategy. Safest, not healthiest, safest. In Jungian terms, the wounded healer archetype becomes problematic when it operates without ego consciousness, when you don't know you're doing it, when it runs automatically. You say yes before you've even checked whether you have anything left to give. You feel responsible for emotions that don't belong to you. You feel guilty when you prioritize yourself, not because you're selfish, but because your psyche genuinely cannot distinguish between self-care and abandonment of the other person. That guilt? That's not a moral failure. That's an ego boundary that was never fully developed. And this brings us to individuation, Jung's central concept for psychological wholeness. Individuation is Jung's term for the lifelong process of becoming who you truly are, not who your parents needed you to be, not who your partners need you to be, who you actually are at the deepest level of your psyche. For empaths, individuation is almost always disrupted early. Why? Because the highly sensitive child reads the emotional environment around them with extraordinary accuracy, and they adapt. They shape themselves to what feels safest in that environment. If emotional need caused conflict, they suppressed their needs. If vulnerability was punished, they performed strength. If love felt conditional on being useful, they became endlessly useful. This is not a character flaw. This is survival intelligence operating in a child's nervous system. But those adaptations, those brilliant, necessary childhood strategies, become the prison walls of adulthood, specifically in intimate relationships, specifically in codependent dynamics. So what does individuation actually look like for an empath moving through codependency? First thing, shadow integration. You have to find what's buried, your own desires, anger, needs, ambitions, the parts of you that felt too dangerous or too selfish to express. These need conscious attention. Journaling, therapy, dream work, whatever method you use, the goal is the same. Make the unconscious conscious. Second, ego strengthening. This sounds counterintuitive for people in spiritual communities, but Jung was clear: before you can transcend the ego, you need a healthy one. A permeable ego, one with no real boundaries, is not spiritually advanced. It's psychologically vulnerable. Empaths need ego strength to distinguish, this is my emotion, this is yours. I choose to help, I am not compelled to help. Third, archetypal awareness. Recognize when the wounded healer is running the show. You can develop a relationship with this archetype consciously. You can honor the genuine gift of healing sensitivity while refusing to let it become self-erasure. Remember that Jung said, the goal of individuation is not to eliminate the archetypes, it's to become conscious of them. To become the one who uses the archetype rather than the archetype using you. Here's the real shift. Codependency ends not when you stop caring. It ends when you care from a place of wholeness instead of a place of wound. Let's make this concrete. Because depth psychology without practical application is just beautiful theory. I want to give you 3 specific shadow work entry points, real psychological techniques rooted in Jungian practice for beginning to unravel empath codependency. Method 1, the resentment map. This is one of the most powerful and underused shadow work tools. Grab a journal. Write down every relationship where you feel or have felt resentment. Not just big betrayals, small ones, the chronic ones, the ones you immediately feel guilty for acknowledging. Now here's the Jungian insight. Resentment is almost always a sign that you gave from obligation, not genuine choice. And where you gave from obligation, there is almost always a buried need underneath. That buried need? That's your shadow speaking. Method 2, the projection audit. Think about the person in your life who triggers the strongest emotional reaction. Irritation, admiration, obsessive concern, whatever it is. Overall background tone. Write down the quality that activates you. Now ask, where does this quality live unexpressed in me? This is not about blame. This is about retrieval. You are gathering lost parts of yourself. Method 3, the what would I need practice. Once daily, before you ask, what does this person need from me, pause. Ask first, what do I need right now? You don't have to act on the answer immediately. Just ask, just listen. The empath who can hear their own interior, not just everyone else's, is an empath on the path toward true wholeness. Seriously speaking, these practices are not quick fixes. Individuation is a lifelong journey, but every act of honest self-witnessing is a step away from codependency and towards something Jung called genuine relatedness, the ability to be truly present with another person precisely because you are truly present with yourself. If this resonated somewhere deep, that's your psyche recognizing something true. Don't scroll past that feeling. Drop a comment and tell me, where do you feel your own needs most disappear in relationships? I read every single one. If you're ready to go deeper, subscribe to The Depth Empath. New videos every day. No fluff, just real psychological depth. And next, watch the video on the wounded healer archetype, because understanding that pattern might be the most important thing you do this year.